Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Alliance's Summer 2021 Empowerment Rally, Activating Advocacy for All. Our rally is happening each and every day this week from Monday, July 19th through Friday, July 23rd, 2021. Today is day two. It is Tuesday, July 20th, and we are so glad that you're joining us. As a reminder, the Alliance is proud to be an initiative of the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities. So let's get started. So, what are we going to rally around this week? Well, each day we have a different theme. Day one was advocacy and leadership. Day two is today. We are going to talk about rights and empowerment. Tomorrow, day three, is legislative advocacy. Day four is about wellness. And day five is a call to action, the future of self-advocacy. So let's get ready. I want to make sure you have all your supplies. You should have your Activating Advocacy for All rally handout. I know I have mine. Don't forget, you need an ink pen or something to write with. How about your Zoom rally cards? I know I have my rally bracelet on. I'm ready. And I'm sporting my Alliance t-shirt. And I know that some of you have already gotten your t-shirts. Some of you have yet to get your t-shirts, but no worries if you haven't gotten it. It's on its way, and you'll be glad when you get it. And I hope you wear it proudly. So, as a reminder, the Activating Advocacy for All rally handout is two sides, and the first side goes through each of the day's themes. Today, again, is Tuesday, July 20th, where we talk about rights and empowerment. I really like side two as well, and I know several people yesterday said they liked it as well. Side two is all about getting to know me. And yesterday we talked about, I really like this about myself. And then we also talked about the television show I like to watch. So as we get to know ourselves and we share about each other, that is a foundation for self-advocacy. So your Zoom rally cards, you have 4 cards. There's a yes, there's a no. We've got an awesome and an activating advocacy for all. So there's going to be times that we stop today and we ask you to share your Zoom cards. How are you feeling? And if you hear something you like, go ahead and throw those Zoom cards up. All right, little bit of housekeeping. We are providing American Sign Language, or ASL, and real-time captioning for your accessibility. And so if you would like real-time captioning, at the bottom of your screen, click on the CC button to see the live transcript. The ASL interpreters are spotlighted, and that's to allow you to keep the video at the top of your screen. All attendees are muted in listen-only mode. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm actually going to ask you to message Jay-Jin Pak or Tara Ahern, and they'll help you out. We really do encourage you to use that chat box to share comments and ask questions throughout our time together. Remember those Zoom rally cards to speak up and speak out. We're going to have that raffle drawing at the end of the day. And most importantly, we want to have fun while we're learning with and from each other. And one thing we forgot to add, we will be having a 15-minute break during our rally. But if you need a break in between that time, feel free to take a break. If you need to get up and stretch, get up and stretch. If you need to get up and get yourself something to drink, get up and get something to drink. If you need to use the washroom, use the washroom. You need to honor your body and do what works best for you.
Mhm.
So, yesterday we talked about a lot of great things as we learned about advocacy. And so I created a word cloud. I took a lot of the comments that you shared in the chat box and I put them into this program, and it came up with a word cloud. And I like the word cloud just puts things where it will. And what I really like is the big part in the middle, saying what you want and need. That really is what advocacy and self advocacy is all about, saying what you want and need. So that's the word cloud from yesterday. We'll have a word cloud tomorrow morning from all the comments that you shared with us today. So I hope you're excited to see that. I'm excited to help put it together. All right. So on today's agenda, it's all about rights and empowerment. We're going to learn about rights. We are going to hear from Equip for Equality, which is Illinois' protection and advocacy system. And as always, we are going to speak up and speak
Sounds
out.
good.
Yes. All right. So ready, set, go. I'd like you to meet my friend Vince. He is going to help with today's rights presentation. So, Vince, can you tell a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, hi, my name is Vincent here. I'm formerly on the Illinois Council on Developmental Disability. On the PACE Advisory Board. I took part in Best Buddy. I like to travel a lot, a lot. And I stay in Chicago, Illinois.
Yes. Thanks,
And
Vince.
I, I
Yeah.
live on my own in the community.
All right. And Vince is going to share a little bit more about that. And as he mentioned, Vince does live in his own apartment in Chicago. He is a past member of the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities, or ICDD Board of Directors. Vince is a member of the PACE ADA Paratransit Advisory Board in Chicago. He participates in the Best Buddy program. He enjoys traveling to visit family, and some of the recent places have been Virginia, California, and Minnesota. And recently, Vince proudly walked his cousin down the aisle at her wedding in North Carolina. So, family is very important. And so we learned about the pieces of the self-advocacy puzzle yesterday, the who, what, when, where, how, and why. And today, part of our focus on why should you speak up and speak out. So Vince, tell me, why is it important for people to advocate or speak up and speak out?
You want to live on your own? You want to make your own choices in your life, in your career? I, I'm, I want to tell people what the way I want stuff done for me.
Yes. And so if you want to live on your own, you want to have a career, you want people to know how you want things to be done, you should speak up and speak out. And here's some of the things we shared yesterday. It's good to ask for something you want or need. And it's good to ask for something someone else may want or need.
Uh,
You should also put a stop to what you don't like or want. You should speak up to get better services and supports and to show we are equal. And really, it's about your right. It is your right to speak up for yourself. And
yeah,
so, with that, we are going to focus on rights. And this is an opportunity for you to get out those rally Zoom cards. And the question is this, or the statement, I have rights. Would you say yes, or would you say no? I have rights, yes or no? And Jay, Jen, and Tara, if you could take a look at everybody's video and let me know, what are people holding up? Are they holding up, yes, I have rights, or no?
It looks like people are holding up the yes card, so that's encouraging.
Awesome.
Woo!
And you know what? Sometimes we don't know that we have rights, or we don't know the rights we have. And that's part of why we've gathered for a rally, is to learn. So here we go. You do have rights. You have the right to feel safe. You have the right to get information. You have the right to speak up for yourself, and you have the right to have choices. Plus, you have other rights. So we want to hear from you. Write into the chat box, what are some other rights that you have? Tara and Jay-Jen will read them out loud. But again, in addition to the right to feeling safe and getting information, to speak up for yourself and to have choices, what other rights do you have? Write it into the chat box, and we are going to have them read out loud. So what other rights do you have?
We're waiting for comments to come in.
All right.
Okay, so Kevin said we have the right to be treated fairly. Dante said to view my files. Oh, great one.
Ooh, yes.
Come and go whenever I can.
Yes.
Nikki Martinez, someone over there, said speak up to not bully people and or be bullied. Lindsay said to ask for assistance. Thomas said to run my staffing. And Mary said the right to your own money.
Yeah.
Says services, and TCRC says the right to vote.
Yes. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, you guys are well on your journey. And so we know that people with disabilities have rights. And one of the most famous rights comes from the Declaration of Independence, which was signed July 4th, 1776. And what the Declaration of Independence says is this: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yes. And there's some more information about rights. So the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the initials for that are CRPD, was adopted in December 2006. And there's a whole bunch of rights within that convention. And I just want to highlight a couple of them. The first is liberty of movement and nationality, the right of living independently and being included in the community, the right of personal mobility, freedom of expression and opinion, and access to information. Someone said, I have the right to review my files, right? Participation in political and public life. Someone else mentioned the right to vote. Participation in cultural life, recreation, leisure, and sport. And so if you want to learn a little bit more about the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or CRPD, Jay-Jen is going to put that link in the chat box. Again, building on this, people with disabilities have rights. One of the things that the Alliance did several years ago was we took the rights of individuals receiving Medicaid home and community-based services. We took that right statement and made it into easier to understand language. And these rights are given to people receiving services when they enter into services or they forced get services. And then they are reviewed and updated every year. And for many people, they are just given this piece of paper. There's several pieces of paper and said, you need to sign this. And you're supposed to say that I understand what I'm signing. I understand all the information. But we knew that the information was hard to understand and we needed to do things differently. So the Alliance took this information and we took each of the rights and we broke it down into an easier to understand format. And we're going to share that with you. And Jin, if you would put into the chat box, if you haven't already, the link to this easier to understand rights of individuals resource.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so the resource, we go through each of the rights and we have the name of the right at the top. And then we have the original wording of the right. So what it says. For this one, it's retention of rights. And the original wording is, you maintain all of your legal and civil rights while receiving services. But what does that really mean? Well, we put in what it really means in plain language. You have rights. The agency who gives you services, they can't take away your rights. So we put that into easier to understand language. We also included a picture that helps visually explain what the rights mean, because I know for me, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I get more information if I have pictures and words together. Maybe you're like me and you appreciate that. Then under the picture, we have words that describe the picture. So if we have an ally or a support staff helping us describe that picture, we give them the words. So you don't have to try and wrestle with the words. Here's the words right here. So there's a picture, and then the words that describe it are a person with arms stretched out, holding scales in each hand, and scales are equal. All right, let's check out a couple more from this resource and you'll see the theme. So Vincent, when you think about your rights around mail and phone calls and visits, tell me what those rights are.
Your right to know who calling you and the right to answer or to decline the call, and also the right to see all your mail that you get and read. If you need help, reading, you can ask somebody to help you read, and if you don't want the mail, you, you don't want the mail, you can pour it in the garbage. You don't want.
Yes, thank you. So relating to mail and phone calls and visits, this means that you can get your mail and have phone calls and visits in private, and that people who visit, call, or send mail might include family and friends. It could include coworkers or church members, boyfriends or girlfriends, and service providers. And also, staff may need to help you or others be safe with mail, phone calls, and visits. And if that's so, the guardian helps make that decision and it's written into the plan. But you have a right to get your mail unopened. If you want somebody to help you, you can take that piece of mail and ask a trusted person, hey, can you help me with this? Whether it's helping open it up or helping read it and understand it. It's the same with phone calls and visits. Let's check out the next one. So, money. Vince, tell us about rights around money.
You have your right to have your own bank account. You have a right to know what in your bank account. And you have the right to, if you want somebody to be a part to know your business, you have the right to pick out who you want to know. Or if you don't want nobody to know your life, you also have the right also.
Awesome. Yes. I heard somebody earlier talking about money and your rights around money if you are receiving services, that you get to decide what you do with your money. And you can ask staff to help you keep your money safe or to help you save your money. And you can ask staff to help you buy things with your money. If you have a legal guardian, your guardian will help you decide how you can handle your money. And if that is so, it needs to be written into your file. Money is a big one. And we find that many people don't know much about their money. They may not know how much is in their account. They may not always have access to their money, but hopefully, knowing this right will help you to understand
And
that you can speak up and speak out about your money.
can I ask something?
Absolutely.
And also, now you are able to have your bank account on your own. If you have a cell for you know, to have your bank account on your cell phone.
Oh, okay. So you can get apps on your cell phone to check out your accounts?
Yeah.
All right. Yes. And if that's something that you want to do, ask for help. All
Yeah.
right. And that leads into banking. So Vince started to allude to banking. And so, Vince, tell us about some rights around banking.
You have a right to have your own bank account, your own personal. Your bank account is your own personal business. You know, have all your bills to be downloaded and be paid on your bank account. You, you have your right to set up your uh, 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 it's a lot of responsibility by having a bank account, but it get easy for you over time.
Yeah, thank you, Vince. So at first, it may be a little bit difficult to understand all the ins and outs of banking. But like Vince said, it can get easier over time when we start to learn and understand more each and every time. And related to banking, you get to decide what you do with your money. So you can ask staff to help you keep your money safe. You can ask staff to help me save money, or not. You can ask staff to help you save money. Maybe I ought to ask staff to help me save my money too. You can also ask staff to help you buy things with your money. And if you get help with your money, and most people do, you get a report every 3 months that shows you how your money was spent. And if
Mm.
you have a legal guardian, the guardian also gets the report every 3 months. So
Mm.
I am hope. Yes.
Okay. And also, you you had to you had to spend spend your money because your money get too much money, and then Social Security you on social, you on any benefit, your benefit will get cut down. So
Yes.
you, you have to spend some of your money.
Thank you, Vince, for that reminder. So, as we start to learn more about our money, if that's something that's important to you and you can choose that, understanding that there are times that we may have to spend some of the money because our account balance is getting too high. And because of the other benefits we may receive, we have to spend money so that we can continue receiving those benefits. But asking somebody about that and learning more about your money, if that's important to you, you need to speak up and speak out about it. All right. So, property. Vince, what is this right about? The right to property.
Yeah, or to have your own property in your own space. Your property is yours, nobody else. If you want somebody else to use it, it's up to you. You don't have to let nobody else use your property. It belongs to you and nobody else.
That's right. Your property is yours and nobody else. They belong to you. And your personal property can include things like clothing, electronics, cell phones. And your property can only be taken away if they're hurting you or somebody else. And if that happens, it will be written into your file. And if you leave an agency, you take all your personal things or property with you. So let's hear from some folks. What property do they have? Do you have clothes you really like, a television? I know some people have cell phones or stereos. Some people might have DVD players, bicycles. What kind of property do you have that you really, really like and you use? Go ahead, type it into the chat box, and Tara will let us know. Some of us may even have some pets.
So Kevin says iPad.
Ooh, yes, an iPad. Thank you, Kevin.
A cell phone and an iPad, Mary. Raymond said a TV. Nikki Martinez's group said clothing, TV, laptops. We've got electronics, pets, TV, radio, cell phone, PlayStation 4. Iris
Whoa.
said her personal space.
Yes. Nice. Thank you for sharing all those. And remember, those items belong to you. Staff can't use them. Other people can't use them unless you say they can. They are yours and yours alone. All right. So, one of the things that the Alliance does, we use a lot of different resources to help people learn about their rights. And over the next couple of slides, we are going to be sharing information from CQL, or the Council on Quality and Leadership. And we've pulled out some cards that we think are going to be really neat for us to discuss. And the neat thing about these cards is they cover the right. And with rights, we know come responsibilities. So I know I have certain rights, but I know I also have responsibilities. And so we're going to talk about those responsibilities. We're also then going to talk about support, because we may need support in learning about our rights. And we know that we have allies and family members and support staff out there to help us. And the support is for them to know how to best help us. So, Vince, remind us about the right of controlling our own money.
Yeah, nobody else can tell you how to I think like everybody can only advise you on how to control your money, where you have the first call. The first call is your money, your responsibility, your everything.
Yes, thank you. And so the right is you have the right to access or get your own money and choice in how it is spent. You have the right to be able to have and carry your money and to learn about the sources of your money, whether it is wages from work or different benefits such as Social Security, disability, or any other type of income. So, with that right comes some responsibilities. So, you have the responsibility to protect and store your money in a way that's going to keep it safe. You have the responsibility to budget and make good decisions, and also the responsibility to ask for help when you want it and when you need it. And so, to our supporters out there, our allies, our family members, our support staff, here's how you can help: providing education and learning opportunities around money, to provide safe storage options, whether that's with a bank of the person's choice or safe storage options within their home. You also have We also want to ask for you to support ensuring due process if rights are restricted around money and finances. And we know that sometimes people have their rights restricted, and we want to make sure that those restrictions don't go on forever, that they are in place for the time where it's needed, and they are lifted when it's not needed anymore. So then, freedom of choice and decisions. This is a big one. And I heard folks allude to that earlier when we were talking about what other rights do you have? And so, Vince, when you think of freedom of choice and decisions, what does that mean to you?
I have the freedom to eat what I want to eat, go to bed when I want to go to bed, go anywhere I want to go on my time. No, I'm not on nobody else. A freedom to hire a support worker, the right to go outside, the right to do anything on my own.
All right. Thank you for those great examples. The right to eat what I want, the right to go where I want to go, the right to hire my own support worker. And that just really is a great example of the right of having choices in all areas of life. You also have the right to get information to help make informed choices and decisions, and the right to have help in making decisions if you want it and you ask for it. And so, with that right of freedom of choice and decisions comes responsibility. And responsibilities include getting information, including laws and rules. There's laws and rules we have to live with. And so we have to understand that in the context of those rights. Also, when we're making decisions and choices, considering pros and cons. If I make this decision, what good will happen? What bad could happen? We call that the pros and cons. Sometimes people make a list. These are the good things with making this decision. These might be the bad things. And that's something that a family member or a trusted staff can help you with. The other responsibility is asking for advice. And when we make our choices, taking ownership of that choice and understanding sometimes we make a choice and it doesn't work out well. Well, that's an opportunity to learn. And so, support. Again, to our allies and our professionals, our family members, our support staff. This is how we need your support. You can learn about everyone's preferences and interests and hopes and dreams. We do this not only by reading person centered plans, but really by spending time in relationship with people, quiet time in learning about people and their preferences, interests, hopes, and dreams. We also want to provide the dignity of risk, not putting people out there in harm's way, but helping people to take measured and calculated risks. We're going to learn more about the dignity of risk later. And with choice and decisions, offering a variety of options, not just one or two. Life is full of choices and decisions. Choices and decisions should be more than, do you just want peas or do you want a salad? More is better. All right, let's learn about some other things. The rights that Vince has that took him on his supportive housing journey. So, Vince, tell us a little bit about your supportive housing journey.
Okay. My mom passed away. I live in a unaccessible apartment. The SNC of Chicago helped me get a seat at a housing voucher. A housing voucher. My sister helped me find me a accessible apartment. My building manager worked with the men for people with disabilities, and we came with all kind of accessible stuff for me to use in my house. My building manager, that's like.
All right. And so I just want to share that Vince knows a lot about his rights. And it's because of that that he has taken the supportive housing journey. So initially, Vince lived with his mom. And when she passed away, he started looking for housing. And it's housing that we all want, right? A safe area. We want housing that's accessible, it's close to transportation and shopping, and it has good parking. We have a right to that. And Vince knew that he had a right to get involved with a program, and he chose Access Living Center for Independent Living, or CIL, in Chicago. He worked with their housing services program and got a voucher. We know that part of how we succeed in life is having people who support us, trusted people who support us, whether they're family member or paid professionals or friends. And a big supporter for Vince was his sister. She was and continues to be a cheerleader for him. And we know that sometimes speaking up for our rights and having a housing journey can take some time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. And there were lots of phone calls, and persistence paid off.
Yeah.
So tell us more about your supportive housing, Vince.
Me and my building manager, we made my apartment to be more accessible for me. We sat down and talked about what I need. She put in a grab bar in the bathroom. Made the shower accessible. Put a wall barrier on the door. And then the minute I came in and made my door to be accessible. I use a morning tool to get in and out of my house every day. And I use an automatic faucet on my sink. All that was done by the men of people with disabilities. And my first day, my heating include I control that for my cell phone.
Yes, I'm going to say awesome. Awesome. So, as part of Vince's supportive housing journey, he knows he has the right to live in the community the way he wants. And part of that right is receiving support 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And because of his schedule and his choice, he makes his support schedule according to his needs, whether it's daily tasks that need to be done, shopping, cooking, doctor's appointments. Vince has the right to have those choices and decisions. He also, because he has the right to safe and accessible housing, Vince shared about his building manager and how responsive that building manager has been, installing guardrails in bathrooms, and adjustable shower head and bumpers on the walls. And Vince also worked with the Chicago Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. That's called MOPD, their home modification program. And through that program, they made Vince's apartment even more accessible. They installed an accessible front door handle so he can get in and out a lot easier. Vince also has touch-free faucets that turn the water on and off. And Vince also talked about the smart thermostat that he can control from his cell phone. And that's been a money saver. And who doesn't like to save money? Yes, saving money. And so here are some of the pictures that Vince would like to share of his apartment and the modifications that have been made. So up at the top, you can see grab bars in the bathroom. And over here, you can see bumpers on the walls. Makes it much safer and more accessible. At the bottom, there is one of those touchless faucets. You just have to wave your hand in front of it and the water comes on. Right here is that smart thermostat that Vince can control from his cell phone. So no more getting up and getting down if it's too hot or too cold. Then we have this accessible entry into Vince's apartment. There's a key fob that's down in this corner, and Vince waves it in front of this, and abracadabra, the door opens up. So if you're carrying a lot of items, you don't have to fumble with your key. Great accessibility that speaks to Vince's right to live in the community.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Vincent.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, so Vince, you talked about freedom of movement and going where you want to go when you want to go there. So tell us about your rights as related to that.
Yeah, I get your plan. When I go somewhere, I just go. I don't have to ask nobody. Well, my sister. Yeah. When I want to go somewhere, I just go on my own, and I have to ask nobody. Can I go here? Can I go? No. We are a grown man, and my wife to move around when I want to. I can, just like everybody else. When everybody else want to move around, go, they go. When I want to stay at home, they stay at home.
Yes, thank you. So, freedom of movement, and Vince shared a lot of great examples. And our rights around freedom of movement include moving within your home, your neighborhood, and your community, getting to choose where and when you go. and having equal access to public places and transportation. So, with that right comes those responsibilities. And those responsibilities include learning how to get around the neighborhood and community, learning how to take public transportation if you want to and if it's available, and learning how to be safe and how to get help if you need it. And so, to our supporters, this is what we need your help with. We need you to help us in providing education related to getting around in our community. We need your help in supporting people in getting and carrying identification. And we need your support in ensuring due process if our rights are restricted around movement. And again, some people may have rights restrictions where they can't go certain places, but we don't want those rights restrictions to go on forever. We need to make sure that they are reviewed regularly and changed when people have changed.
Yeah.
All right. Leisure and rest. Woo, we all need leisure and rest and fun things to do. So, Vince, tell us what you like to do for leisure and rest.
I like to go out there, sit on my porch from front, and I like to go to bowling, and watch TV.
All right. So let's put it out there to everybody else. You heard Vince said he likes to get out, he likes to be outside, he likes to watch TV. Did you say bowling?
Yeah.
I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that you were a bowler. All
Yeah.
right. So let's put it out there. What do you like to do for leisure and rest? Go ahead, type it in using the chat box. Let's hear from you. What do you like to do for leisure and rest?
Okay, so Brian is an amateur photographer.
Oh, nice.
Scrapbooking and bowling and likes to sit outside. Dante likes to watch TV. Sue is into fishing. Jasmine listens to music. Jen likes to read and take walks. Noelle does cross stitch. Lavelle is into roller skating. Mary plays video games. We've got folks who are really excited and jazzed for Special Olympics. And I think probably the Olympics that are coming up too. Let's see, we've got bowling, shopping, swimming, scanning old photos, puzzles, going out to eat, riding bikes, taking naps. I love that.
All right. I am glad you all shared, and thank you for that. I like a lot of the same things you like, and I think it shows that we are more alike than different. Yes. So you have the right to participate in community activities of choice, whether that is bowling or fishing or meeting up with other people. You have the right to set your own schedule and routine, and also the right to explore and use your community. And again, with that right comes responsibilities, learning about the risks, if there are any, of activities. Now, there's probably not a lot of risks with fishing or bowling, but say you wanted to do skydiving, that would be a time to do those pros and cons. Maybe there's a risk. You also have the responsibility to plan ahead, such as scheduling and figuring out your budget. How much is this going to cost? When might transportation or staff support be available? And ask for support in learning what is available in the community. Sometimes we don't know what's out there, and we need people to help us to explore and learn what's out there. And so, to our supporters, please help us learn about our preferences and interests for activities and for rest. Support us in having new experiences and teach us about community resources. And so, our last right we are going to cover is free association and assembly. So who can we hang with and where can we gather? So Vince, what are your ideas on who we can be friends with and where we can gather? What's our rights?
You like to be friends with, yeah, be careful who you be friends with, but you have right to be friends with anybody. You want to be friends with you. You don't have to be friends with everybody you don't want to be your friend. And you have to find a safe spot to gather. Everywhere is not safe, yeah.
Yeah.
A safe spot for you there to.
Yes, so free association and assembly, those are kind of some strange words, right? We don't really associate free association and assembly with our rights, but this is what it really means. We have the right to spend time with people that we choose, and we have the right to make new friendships and relationships. We also have the right to join groups and clubs and different associations. And so our responsibilities around that are we have to respect the rights of others. People might not like the same things that we like, and that's okay. They also have rights, just like we do. We have the responsibility to share about our interests and activities and asking for support to participate. We also have the responsibility, as we are going to be making friends and having different relationships, to learn about healthy relationships so that we can stay safe. And to our supporters out there, provide us with opportunities to do things in the community, whether it's volunteering or ongoing or episodic one-time events. Please support us in developing and maintaining our natural connections, whether that's friends or family members. And please provide us with learning opportunities around healthy relationships. And it's with that information about providing us learning opportunities around healthy relationships that we now turn over the slides to Tara.
Okay, thanks so much, Christine. So I'm going to talk for just a couple minutes, and I wanted to share a resource with all of you and really just kind of set the stage for something that we're going to be talking about for the next couple days, which is your right to have safe and healthy sexual relationships. So this is something that we hear from a lot of folks that they want, right? Healthy relationships could mean a lot of things. And one of those things is healthy sexuality with a partner that you choose or multiple partners that you choose, right? And so there's a lot of really great work that's been done in the state of Illinois specifically around this issue that the Alliance has been part of, which we're so excited about. And one of the resources that was developed by the Illinois Guardianship and Advocacy Commission is this resource called the Sexual Rights Statement. And so here you'll see that, Jay-Jen has just put it in the chat, which is, thank you so much, Jay-Jen. So this really goes over what your rights are. So the first one is having body integrity, privacy, and personal choices respected, including the right to know how to protect yourself. Excuse me. And then the second one is be free from sexual harassment, abuse, assault, and other forms of sexual violence. So that's really important, right? And then 3, we have explore and define your own sexuality, your orientation, gender identity, and sexual expression without judgment or discrimination. And yes, we're seeing in the chat, these are very important, absolutely. The next we have is decide whether and when to be sexually active. This is something that you get to decide for yourself, not your staff or your family. This is a right that you have, that we all have for ourselves. Choose your own sexual partners and have privacy and dignity related to dating and intimacy. So this is kind of a great one because we hear from folks that maybe they live in a silla or a group home and they have roommates, and that can be really kind of tricky to how do you navigate that? Or maybe they have staff that really don't understand this issue and aren't as supportive about, people being alone and being intimate. Or maybe it's family who are kind of a big barrier and don't want folks to engage in this kind of, exploration, right? And so we want to make sure that you all know that you have rights around sexuality and that you can do what you want to do. The next one is have safe and pleasurable sexual experiences. We talk a lot about sexual violence, which is really, really important because we know that a lot of people with disabilities are sexually assaulted. The statistics are very high, especially for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. But we also want to focus on the fact that this is just a human right. And, it can be that simple, that you are allowed to have relationships and sexual relationships if you want to. And the next one is decide whether, when, and whom to marry and having equality in marriage. This is a really big one, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow, so I don't want to give too much away, but stay tuned for more. And the last one is decide whether, when, and by what means to have a child or children, how many children, and the spacing of one's children. So that's another important one. Next slide. Okay, and then we have readily available and equal access to education and information about sex. So this is something that's a really exciting opportunity that we now have a House bill that was passed. It's a public act now mandating that people with IDD can get sex ed if they want it. So we're going to talk more about that tomorrow. And I'm going to pause for interpreter switches. Thanks, ladies. Okay, number 10 is the right to receive that education, information, services, and resources that is free from discrimination, recognizes and supports your own choices and interests, and promotes trauma-informed practices. That's a really important one. And then we have the highest attainable standard of sexual health. And lastly, have an effective remedy for violations of fundamental rights. So, wow, that's a lot of rights. And so I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who's going to talk about the sexual rights statements.
People with disabilities have the right to have body integrity, privacy and personal choice respected, including the right to know how to protect oneself. I have the right to say what happens to and with my body. I have the right to privacy and showing and sharing my sexuality. I have the right to make my own choices about my sexuality. I have the right to learn how to keep myself safe from someone hurting me sexually. And what is those two last words? I'm sorry.
It says, and to use what I learned to help keep me safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to use, yeah. People with disabilities have the right to choose one's own sexual partners and have privacy and dignity related to dating and sexual intimacy. I have a right to choose who I want to date, where I go on dates, and have privacy when I go on dates. I also have a right to not go on dates and not have sexual intimacy. I have the right to have my choices on who I date, where I go, my sexual intimacy respected. Sorry, the screen is in my way.
Oh, it's okay. So the last sentence says sexual intimacy can include hugging, touching, and kissing. So Adam, what do you think about all of this? Do you feel like I know this is a topic that you're recently really interested in. What does this all mean to you? Why is it important that we have rights around, or that we know our rights around healthy sexuality and relationships?
Because you want to be safe and you want to be respected as a person and you want to be a good listener to what your partner says. And that's why I think it's important.
Absolutely. Okay, and so why don't you read what's on this slide?
People with disabilities have the right to decide whether and when to be sexually active. I have the right to decide if I do or don't want to have sex or sexual activity. I have a right to change my mind.
Ooh, yeah, that last sentence. I have the right to change my mind. And I know this is something we get into when folks actually have sex ed, but you always have the right to change your mind, even during sex. And I just want to point that out because sometimes we forget about those things too, right? Boundaries and consent and respect are really important. And those things are ongoing, right? Consent is something that needs to be people need to get consent, right? But there's also maintaining consent. So people can change their mind at any time if they decide it's too much or they're overwhelmed. So just wanting to put that out there too, okay? And then also when you get the slides, if folks are interested in getting the slide decks, they will be in PDF form so that you can go through and click on the links. So right here will be that easier to understand statement. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the dignity of risk. Has anyone ever heard of that before? If you have, use your yes card, and if you haven't, use your no card. Okay, so Adam's heard of it before. Okay. All right, so the dignity of risk is this idea, it's kind of like a philosophy that people make mistakes, right? That's part of a human experience, kind of like all these rights that we have that Christine and Vincent talked about. We've got a lot of rights, and one of those rights is to fail and to make mistakes because that's a part of life and how we grow and how we learn. Mistakes are a right, and everyone makes them. So the dignity of risk is the right to take reasonable risks while engaging in life experiences and the right to fail in those activities. So I think this gets kind of complicated because when we receive services, we have staff and friends and family who want to keep us safe. And so there's a lot of rules that the state has around how we can provide services to people. But we also want to make sure that they have opportunities to learn and grow and to make mistakes. So Adam or Vincent, can you think of, how this applies in your life or, what this means to you or what this could look like for someone? And Adam, I'm kind of thinking like, Adam lives on his own, right? You live in your own apartment. So are there things that you kind of like, did you learn through mistakes when you were kind of doing this on your own? And why was that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
When you have like roommates and stuff and you don't get along, you got to learn from it, or you find a place that is not the safest area to live. You got to learn and know what to do when you're not feeling safe around your area.
That's a great example. So
Yeah.
one example could be like, say you're cooking with your roommates and you burn the squash. That's a mistake that happens. Lots of us burn our food. It's part of life. It's part of adulting. So that's a great example of how we want to make sure people have those opportunities because you learn from that. Next time you might not burn the squash, or say you get in a fight with your roommate and you say some not kind things. Maybe next time you'll learn from that because you have, it creates that space where you can have conversations and apologize and learn from those things. So those are really great examples. I'm going to ask Vincent too if he has anything he wants to share about the dignity of risk and making mistakes if he's still around.
Yeah. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I broke the terrace to I learned to not talk to everybody. You know, I talk to everybody, but everybody don't want to be talked to. So I just I learned who to talk to and who not to talk to. Do you understand me?
No, can you
Oh,
share?
yeah. This is Christine, and Vince, I'm with you. Vince said, you know, I used to talk to everybody, and I learned who I can talk to and who I shouldn't talk to, because maybe you shouldn't talk to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So really the point is that don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's a part of, being an adult and being independent, and we want to learn from those things, right? I think, every time I do a staff training, I always ask people, have you ever made a mistake and learned a lot from it and actually had, life-changing experiences, or like things that really kind of, you have these aha moments, right? Our lives can't always be perfect. Things are not, they don't just fall into place all the time. We kind of have to work at things. And so we really want to make sure that me as a support staff, that I'm doing the things I can do to help make sure that people have opportunities to grow and learn and make mistakes too, because I make mistakes all the time. So yeah, there you go. Okay.
All right. And as we head into our break, I invite you to get your rally card, the getting to know me. As we head into that break, think about what your favorite food is. I know lunchtime is coming up. And think about your favorite food. Think about your favorite food. If you want to write that down in that space, that's great. We are going to go ahead and start taking a break. All right, welcome back, and I hope everybody had a great break. We are going to move along with our time together today, but I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to think about your favorite food on the Getting to Know Me, and then also the singer or music I listen to is. We're not going to share those right now, but I just want you to think about that. Maybe take the opportunity to share it with somebody and to write it down. These are things that we know can bring us closer to each other. Maybe we find out we have the same favorite food or the same type of music or singer. So, without further ado, we are now going to hear from Equip for Equality, the Illinois Protection and Advocacy System. They help protect the human and civil rights of people with disabilities in Illinois. And we are going to hear from Cheryl Jansen. Cheryl, take it away.
Thanks, Christine. Hi, everyone. My name is Cheryl Jansen. I'm the Public Policy Director at Equip for Equality. And as Christine said, we are the Illinois Protection and Advocacy System. And usually, because that's quite a mouthful, we refer to ourselves and others like us as the P&A. So you will hear me talk about that. So I wanted to start out just by talking about what the Protection and Advocacy System is and how it came about. Back in 1975, there was a lot of news and articles about really bad conditions at a state-run institution for people with disabilities in the state of New York. And because of that, Congress passed a law that created a system of state-level independent protection and advocacy organizations. And so there is a P&A in every state and territory in the United States. At first, the P&A system was made to protect and advocate just for the rights of people with developmental disabilities. and that is called the PAD program. Then about 10 years later, Congress created a P&A system for people who had serious mental and emotional illnesses, and that's called the PAMI program. And then fast forward another approximately 10 years, and Congress created kind of a catch-all P&A system for people who had any other mental or physical disabilities that weren't covered either under the PAD program or the PAMI program. And that program is called PAIR, which is Protection and Advocacy for Individual Rights. Next slide, Christine. Since that time, Congress has actually passed additional laws and has created 4 more P&A systems. So we now have a total of 7. Those 4 are for beneficiaries of Social Security, which is referred to as the PABS program. There is a program for traumatic brain injury called the PATB program. There is an assistive technology program called the PAT program. And then finally, there is a voting access program, which is called PAVA. So what are some of the things that we are allowed to do and that we have responsibility to do as the P&A in Illinois? First of all, P&As have to be independent of disability service providers. And that's true of both public and private providers. We also have really broad powers to protect people's rights. So we can take legal action in the courts. We can go into facilities, both private and public, to talk with people who are getting services at those places. And we can also go into those facilities and visit with people without telling anybody that we're coming. So without any advance notice. And that gives you a feel of how things really are when they don't know that you're coming to take a look around. The P&As also have access to records of people who are receiving services, as long as you have that person's consent, or if they have a guardian, the guardian's consent. There is an exception though. If the P&A has probable cause to believe that a person is being abused or neglected, then we don't need consent to take a look at their records. And we also have the ability to go into we have access to state and facility abuse and neglect investigations that are done by investigators for the state or for that facility. Finally, we have the ability to investigate abuse and neglect at both public and private institutions, facilities, and programs. So we can conduct our own investigations where we think that it's needed. And we also then are required to involve the general public in developing our advocacy priorities. And just earlier this month, we had a public priorities planning meeting in order to get input and comments from advocates and the public in general about what kinds of things they would like us to see, they'd like to see us doing or doing more of. So that's really what helps shape, what our priorities are from year to year, and it is a very important and a very helpful process. So as we said at the beginning, my organization, Equip for Equality, is the protection and advocacy system for people with disabilities in the state of Illinois. And we are a private and independent, not-for-profit organization. We are not affiliated with the state in any way. We've been the P&A since 1985, and Governor Thompson was then in office, and he chose Equip for Equality as the P&A system in Illinois. At first, Of course, because I talked about the P&A system, we only assisted people with developmental disabilities. And now, because the P&A system has grown, we serve people with all kinds of disabilities of all ages across the state of Illinois. Next slide, Christy. So let me tell you about some of our programs and services so that you know what it is we do and what we might be able to help you with. As we talked about, we do abuse and neglect investigations. We also have a civil rights team, and they do legal advocacy for people with disabilities. So we represent people in court if that's needed. We also have a special education clinic to help people get the special education services that they need and to keep those services. And we also have a public policy program, and that's what I'm involved in. And so we participate in the state legislative process and somewhat in the federal legislative process, and keep track of what's happening on the state front in terms of bills and legislation, as well as on the federal level. So what are our main priorities or areas of focus? One is to keep people safe from abuse and neglect. Very important. Second is community integration, making sure that people are able to live where they wish, with whom they wish, and that they are able to make their own choices about how they live. Also, discrimination, self-determination, and as we've mentioned, special education. Yeah. So let me talk first about the Abuse Investigation Unit. This is, a distinct and separate program at EQUIP. So not all P&As have a specific abuse investigation unit, but we do. And it began in 2005. We got some money from Congress to help show the benefit of using an independent group like ours to assist with investigations of abuse and neglect. And so really what the focus of the Abuse Investigation Unit is to find systemic issues and possible ways to fix problems with the abuse and neglect investigation process in Illinois. So as I mentioned earlier, our Abuse Investigation Unit makes unannounced site visits, and we watch both public and private facilities to find dangerous conditions and practices. We also look at investigative reports and documents that are done by state agencies and private facilities. And sometimes we issue public alerts and reports to show problems and ideas to make the health and safety of people with disabilities better. So most recently, Equip for Equality did a special report on the abuse and neglect of students with disabilities at a residential program in Aurora, Illinois, called Northern Illinois Academy. And we had numerous staff who spent countless hours at this facility, observing, reviewing records, talking with students and staff. And sorry to say that we found that students were often improperly restrained and secluded. So what do I mean by restrained? Restraint is doing something to limit somebody's freedom of movement. So it may be holding that person, it may be strapping that person down, It may even be giving them some kind of drugs or medicine that makes them feel that they are not able to move. And seclusion means you take a person away from where everybody else is. And it may be in a separate room, it may be in a separate area, and often it is keeping that person all by themselves in that room or area, not with anyone, although you are supposed to have at least someone observe a person when they're in seclusion. And on top of that, we found that they didn't have enough staff and that staff did not adequately report that they were using restraint and seclusion. And as a result of the report, it's a public report that anybody can view. It's on our website at equipforequality.org. The state decided to move all the students in its care out of that facility. And the facility itself now has decided to close down its program completely. So our civil rights team, as I said, they do a lot of legal advocacy. The major areas of focus for our civil rights team is our discrimination. So this is cases where people with disabilities have been treated differently than others because of their disabilities, and they haven't received reasonable accommodations or modifications. So where can this discrimination happen? It can happen in employment when you're trying to get or keep a job. And we do have an employment rights helpline that people can call if they feel, if they're having difficulties or they feel that their rights have been violated, and get free legal advice and information about what those employment rights are. We also handle cases involving discrimination in transportation, as well as voting, and discrimination that happens in state and local government programs, as well as access to private businesses and housing. Another major area of focus for us in the civil rights area is community integration. And by that, we mean actions to enforce the rights of people with disabilities to live in the more integrated setting with the supports they need to be successful. And our civil rights team handles individual and systemic cases, so both ends. And I should say, although, you know, we certainly do handle lawsuits and file cases in court on behalf of people with disabilities and groups of people with disabilities, we also provide self-advocacy assistance, because a lot of problems can be resolved by just having information and knowing what your rights are. And so people call us with problems, we will try and help them to take care of the situation themselves, which is very important. And we also provide training and education related to all of our programs so that people, again, know what their rights are, what they can do if they think their rights have been violated. Another area of focus is self-determination, which is so important. And these are actions to help people with disabilities reach their goals and to make choices with unneeded limits. And this is especially true in the area of guardianship. So we right now have 3 big community integration lawsuits, and they are what are known as class actions, meaning that it represents a wide and specific group of people. So I want to talk just a little about those 3 community integration class actions that we are handling. The first is Liggis versus Eagleson, which you may have heard of. It is a suit that was filed under the Americans with Disabilities Act on behalf of people with developmental disabilities who are living in large privately owned facilities called intermediate care facilities for people with developmental disabilities. And you'll often hear those places referred to as ICFDDs. We have another community integration class action, Williams versus Pritzker. Again, this is a suit that was filed on behalf of people with mental illness who live in large private facilities that are called institutions for mental diseases, or IMDs, which are 100% funded by the state. And I have to say, every time I see that term, institutions for mental diseases, it makes my skin crawl. And then we have a third community integration class action called Colbert versus Pritzker. And this is an ADA lawsuit that was filed on behalf of people with disabilities who were living in Cook County nursing homes. All three of these cases have resulted in something called a consent decree. And that means an agreement that was reached with the state that's been approved by the court and is enforceable if the state doesn't hold up their end of the bargain. So let me talk just a little bit more about the Liggis case. As I mentioned, it was filed on behalf of people who were living in ICFDDs who wish to live in the community, and it requires that those people receive an individualized, independent evaluation and an opportunity to live in the community with the services they need. And so under the agreement that was reached with the state, over a 6-year period, any of the about 6,000 people living in ICFDDs who want to live in the community must be moved to the most integrated community-based setting that meets their needs. Also, 3,000 people with developmental disabilities who are living at home must be provided with community-based services. And I'm happy to report that so far, more than 10,000 people with developmental disabilities have transitioned to community services under the Liggis consent decree. So we also have a special education clinic. Students with disabilities in Illinois still have problems getting a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive setting, which is required by federal law. And we found out from studies that were done that getting help with special education issues is one of the largest unmet legal needs that folks have. So to help students and parents meet that need, we've started the Special Education Clinic. So what are some of the services that are provided by our Special Ed Clinic? We have a statewide helpline to give advice and self-advocacy assistance, information and referrals to parents and students. We do special education training seminars for parents and students about their rights. We also have written materials with legal rights information. We negotiate with schools about special education services for students. And if it becomes necessary because things can't be worked out otherwise, we will provide legal representation in due process hearings and in court. So as I've indicated, the primary focus of the Special Ed Clinic is to make sure that students are served in the least restrictive environment. and we call this often LRE. Also, carrying out individual education plans or IEPs, making sure that students have accommodations and modifications at school so that they can be successful and learn properly. And we also handle cases involving suspension and expulsion of students with disabilities from school. In addition, we focus on transition services. So this is making the change from high school to either more schooling or education or life in the community or both, and what that takes for students to do that successfully. We also focus on the use of restraint and seclusion in schools, making sure that students with disabilities have the assistive technology they need to learn successfully, and also just determining eligibility of students for special education services. Finally, I'll talk some about the public policy program. And we work to achieve our mission to advance the rights and full inclusion of people with disabilities in community life by participating in the state legislative and public policy processes. So we write bills or legislation. We testify at legislative hearings at the Capitol in Springfield, or during COVID remotely via Zoom, as we're doing here today. And we also advocate for the passage of those bills by the state legislature. And the state legislature is known as the Illinois General Assembly. So during the legislative session, which generally runs from January through the end of May, and then for a couple of weeks in the fall, we track all the disability bills that are moving in the state legislature and take positions, sometimes for, sometimes against, on bills that are probably going to have a major impact on the lives of people with disabilities. And during the legislative session, we put out something called a weekly legislative update. And this is something that it's a document that tells you which disability bills are going to be heard by a legislative committee during that week, where it will be heard, by which committee the bills will be heard. It provides a summary of the bill. It also provides you a link so you can read the whole bill if you want to. And it provides a link to file something called an electronic witness slip. And so an electronic witness slip is something that you go online to fill out, and it allows you to say whether you are for or against a specific bill. So this lets legislators know, exactly what the temperature of the water is, how many people are in favor of a bill, how many people are against, and who those people are. So this is an important way for you to advocate and enforce your rights by letting legislators know this is a good bill for people with disabilities, this is a bad bill for people with disabilities. And I strongly suggest that you follow up by calling or writing your legislator to tell them why you support it or why you're against it. And I should say, if anyone would like to get that weekly legislative update, my email address is provided at the end of this presentation, and just send me an email and I'd be happy to add you to the list. Although we also post the updates on our website on a weekly basis, so you can see it there as well. We also in public policy do some in-depth research projects that result in public reports and recommendations for change. One of those was something that's called the Illinois Employment First Blueprint. So several years ago, the state of Illinois passed a law making Illinois an employment first state. And what does that mean? Employment first means that community-based employment for earning at least the minimum wage and getting the same benefits as everybody else should be the first choice for people with disabilities. And so when Illinois passed that law, and I should say the law didn't have a lot of meat on the bones, didn't have a lot of details. We undertook a research project and we looked at all 50 states to see what they were doing with regard to putting employment first into place. And we compiled all that information in a report called the Employment First Blueprint. And we had specific and concrete action steps that the state could take in order to move us forward and make employment first a reality. And if you're interested, that blueprint is also on our website. And we, educate, we talk with policymakers about issues that impact the lives and the rights of people with disabilities, including the right to lead independent, productive lives in the community. And this is education that you can also, and I encourage you to take a part in, call your legislators, write to your legislators, go visit your legislators. And, you can do that at the Capitol when they're in session, but generally they're kind of hard to get a hold of and they don't have a lot of time when they're at the Capitol doing work. So make a call when the legislators aren't in session, call their local district office, tell them you live in their district, you're one of their constituents, and you would like to meet with them to talk about an issue or talk about a bill that impacts you and impacts people with disabilities in general. You'll have a much more meaningful meeting with them if you can do that. You'll get more time and you're going to get more interest from them when they're in their own offices. So try that. So what are some of the bills that we have worked on? A couple that we actually initiated, which means we started it and wrote it and then worked to get it passed, was a bill that provided due process protections to adults with disabilities whose guardians seek to have them involuntarily sterilized, meaning this is a surgery that would leave you without the ability to have children. We also had a bill to establish a team of independent experts from different fields to look at any death that occurs in a state or community facility or program for people with developmental disabilities and people with mental illness. And the purpose of that is to look at whether there are any patterns or practices that caused those deaths or led to those deaths, so that steps can be taken to prevent them from happening again. Most recently, and this is just during this last spring legislative session, we have advocated for legislation to reduce and eventually stop the use of seclusion and restraint in Illinois schools. We worked actually for close to 2 years, very closely with the sponsors of the bill to develop the language of the bill and increase student protections. We educated legislators, by meeting and talking and writing to them about the extreme dangers of using seclusion and restraint on students. And we built support for the bill among disability groups and self-advocates like you, who then weighed in with those same legislators to say, we need this bill, it's important, here's why. And the final bill, and that bill is House Bill 219, which was sponsored by Representative Jonathan Carroll and Senator Ann Gillespie, has passed both houses of the Illinois General Assembly, and it's waiting for the governor to sign the bill into law. I'm happy to say that he has publicly stated that he will sign it. And what's really important about this bill is it will require all schools to come up with a plan to reduce and eventually stop using restraint and seclusion over a 3-year period. And they have to submit those reports. They have to report each year on the progress they're making and make adjustments to make sure that they're reaching goals. And we think it's going to bring about some really significant change. So we also have a program with regard to improving voting access. And you may know that about 20 years ago, in 2002, Congress passed the Help America Vote Act, which is often called HAVA. And it has requirements to improve the access of the voting process for people with disabilities. And under HAVA, we do quite a few things to promote and increase voting accessibility, which includes, next slide, Chrissy. We prepare and give out voting rights information so that people know what their rights are and how they can go about enforcing them. We also run a toll-free Election Day helpline to answer questions about voting problems that are experienced by voters with disabilities on Election Day. And we offer free trainings for people with disabilities about their voting rights. We survey polling places for accessibility, including for people with mobility impairments and those who have non-visual access. We train election judges, the people who work at the polling places, on voting rights and disability awareness. We also serve as what's called a deputy registrar, which allows us to register people with disabilities to vote. And we do this at our offices. We do it when we do outreach. We do it at trainings. And we will go to facilities and programs and schools to provide that service. And we also help voters with disabilities who have problems in voting with filing a complaint with the Illinois State Board of Elections. For several years now, we've been involved in a multi-year project with the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners called Voting Access Chicago. And it is aimed at making all places in the city of Chicago fully accessible to voters with disabilities by the year 2022. So the clock is ticking. And we recruit and we train not only our staff, but volunteers to go out and survey polling places on Election Day. Based on the surveys that our staff does and that our trained volunteers do, then we provide possible ways that the accessibility barriers that we find can be fixed. And we, on a regular basis, track Chicago's progress on making all of their polling places accessible. And that is my overview of what Equip for Equality is and does. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, so this is Christine, and thank you, Cheryl, for that great information. If you have questions, Cheryl's email address is here on the screen, CherylJ2@equipforequality.org. Thank you again so much. Please connect with Cheryl if you have questions. Check out Equip for Equality's website. You can get lots of information there. to help you on your advocacy journey of learning about rights.
And thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Cheryl. So, Adam, what is our question for folks?
I will speak up and speak out about my rights.
All right, go ahead and use those Rally Zoom cards. Who is going to speak up and speak out about their rights? I know I am. And you know what? It's okay if you put no. If you don't want to speak up and speak out about your rights, remember, life is about choices and decisions, and you get to choose and decide what works best for you. Tara, just share a little bit about this Activating Advocacy for All slide. Great pictures. Yes.
Hearing in the chat, yes, they're going to advocate for themselves. So here on the slide we have, just again, this kind of goes back to yesterday where we saw pictures of people speaking up and speaking out for themselves and taking part in advocacy in many places. So we've got folks at Speak Up, Speak Out, the summit that happens in Springfield every year, doing presentations at conferences, making vision boards. We've got someone dressed up as Supergirl. So, and then folks speaking up at rallies. So, this is just to say that there's lots of ways that you can speak up and share what's important to you, and lots of places and spaces that you can activate advocacy for all. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I'm going to turn it back over to Christine, who's going to take us home.
All right. So, Adam, what in the world did we do today?
Rights and empowerment. Learn about rights. Learn about Equip for Equality.
Yes, today was all about rights, and it builds on that self-advocacy we talked about yesterday. And I don't know about you, but I can feel my self-advocacy muscles getting stronger. So on your Activating Advocacy for All rally handout, the second day, Tuesday, July 20th, 2021, was all about rights and empowerment. I have rights. What are your rights goals? So if you'd like, type in the chat box. What are your goals around rights? What are your goals around rights? You can speak it out loud. You can type it in using the chat box. Remember, yesterday we talked about how. How do people communicate? Well, all different ways. Talk, text, face-to-face, email, writing, communication board, gestures. But let us know, what are your goals around rights? Is it to learn more? Is it to speak up and speak out about rights? Is it to teach others about rights? Let us know. Tara, what are folks saying?
Okay, so we've got a couple folks saying they want to learn more about their rights.
Yes.
DJ said he wants to learn about his rights as a parent with a disability.
All right, yes.
We want to learn about communicating our rights and fight for the rights of others.
Yes.
To understand our rights and help others know their rights too. And my right to live in my own apartment and communication devices and fighting for my rights.
Yes.
And then also stuff about teaching others, helping others, and treating others with respect.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. We understand that we have rights. And we also know that means everybody else has rights too. And we may not like the same things or believe the same things, but we understand that if I have the right to think or believe one way, I know that other people have the right to think and believe the way they do. Yes. So, how are you feeling? Did you like today? Are you activating advocacy for all? Are you feeling awesome? Yes? No? How are you feeling? Tara, take the temperature out there. How are people feeling? What signs are they throwing up?
So it looks like we've got some awesomes. We've got yes. Awesome. Activating advocacy for all.
Yes, yes. All right. So, Adam, we want folks to speak up and speak out using that chat box. And what's the question we have for them? All right, Adam, if you're able, what's the question we want folks to respond to?
Oh, what was your favorite thing today? What did you learn?
Yeah, let us know. What was your favorite part about today? Did you learn anything new? What was it? Maybe for some of us, well, I knew I had rights, but maybe I just needed to be reminded. Or maybe I didn't know about Equip for Equality and all the things they did. So, what was your favorite thing? Was it moving and grooving to the music at break time? Was it sharing your rally cards? Maybe it was writing down what your favorite food was, because I know it's getting on lunchtime. So, Tara, what are people saying?
Okay, so we've got rights, respect, dignity, equip for equality updates, learned a little bit more about my rights, and everyone liked all of the All About Me card. Very cool.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. And I'm really excited to hear about what you're putting into the chat box, and be looking for those tomorrow on our word cloud that we are creating each and every day. So, Adam, what is coming up tomorrow on day 3 of our rally?
Legislative advocacy, systems advocacy, how to find your legislators, how a bill becomes a law, how to file a witness slip, important pieces of disability legislation, 2021 to 2022 legislative priorities.
Yes, we're building up. Tomorrow, we're going to talk all about legislative advocacy. We know we have the right to speak up and speak out about the things that are important to us. And how can we put those things into practice? How can we speak up, and the rule makers and the legislators, how can we make sure that they hear our voices and what's important to us? But I mentioned lunch is coming up, and I don't want to miss this opportunity for you to look back at your All About Me on your rally card. And what did you put down is your favorite food? I need some ideas for lunch. What's your favorite food? Go ahead and type that into the chat box. Give me some ideas for lunch. What's your favorite food? So, Tara, I hope people are sharing some yummy ideas.
Okay, so we've got chicken Alfredo.
Oh, yes.
Food, meatloaf, cheeseburger, steak, tacos, pizza, ham. Ooh, pizza, pasta, orange chicken, ramen noodles, pizza puffs, fries, spaghetti, fish and green beans. Ooh, chicken and fries, nachos, BLTs, breakfast foods. Got it all. A little bit of everything.
Ooh, oh man, my stomach is starting to go. Thank you for all those ideas. I think I'm going to have a good lunch. Okay, so we are to the time of our rally where we are going to share the winners of the gift cards. So the first winner we're going to share is for, let's see, our self-advocate winner. So I'm doing a little bit of a drum roll. All right. I'm glad the dog didn't bark, thinking that somebody was knocking on the door. So today's winner is Beverly T from IAG in East Moline, Illinois. Congratulations, Beverly T. You are today's winner of the rally. Your name was drawn randomly using random.org. You will be contacted by Noel King of the Alliance staff to find out your choice of the gift cards. All right, and here we go for staff. Let's give it a little bit of a drum roll. And our staff winner today is Mary Kelly Minton from the Autism Collective in Peoria, Illinois. Congratulations, Mary Kelly. You are today's staff professional winner of a gift card, and you also will be contacted by Noel King from the Alliance to find out which gift card you choose. And remember, your life has purpose. Your story is important. Your dreams count. Your voice matters. And you were born to make an impact. And making an impact is what you are doing. And that is awesome. So on behalf of our speakers today, Vincent and Cheryl, on behalf of the Alliance and all the self-advocates and support staff that have gathered, we thank you. Again, if you want to reach out to Tara Ahern, the project director of the Alliance, you can reach her at tara.advocacy@gmail.com. You can connect with us using our email, info@selfadvocacyalliance.org. Don't forget, we have an Alliance website. Yes, we do. And it is awesome. And we'd like you to visit it at selfadvocacyalliance.org. And if you are on Facebook, we invite you to find us and like us on Facebook. So I can't wait for you to join us tomorrow for day 3 of the Alliance's annual rally. So on the count of 3, we are going to speak up and speak out. 1, 2, 3.
Speak up and speak out.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.